Hi, Grace Church family. Bill Federer here. I am so looking forward to being with you. I've got two messages. One is an overview of world history and how it's mostly kings. Until the 1600s, you have the Calvinist Puritans, and they came up with a covenant form of government where we can all rule ourselves without a king, but we all need to be involved. They got their idea from ancient Israel, that first 400 years out of Egypt, before King Saul. Well, after a century of that, it got a little dry, and they were nicknamed Old Lights. And then in the 1700s, you had the New Lights, and they said it's more than a plan. You have to have an experience with Jesus, and when you do, your life will change, and you won't do worldly things anymore, like bars and brothels and government. It's like, what was that last thing? Yeah, if you're really a Christian, you won't be involved in government because it's worldly. Well, what do you do with the chapters in the Bible that talk about silence equals consent? Like in a wedding ceremony, if you're silent, you're giving consent. Well, if there are sins in the community and you're silent, you're giving consent to sin. And if you give consent to sin, you are co-guilty. And what's the Bible response? Well, the early church, they told Peter not to speak in the name of Jesus. And Peter told the Sanhedrin, it's better to obey God rather than men. And so Peter could not be silent. He had to speak out. And so God is calling us to follow that example. It's going to be an exciting message. And then the second is, since the most common form of governments are kings and democracies and republics are attempts to rule without a king, what if the king, the government, wants the power back? Well, there's two methods, fear and free stuff. If they can get the population into fear, they'll panic and surrender their freedom. And the other is free stuff. All right, the government's so nice until you get dependent. And now, how do you create an atmosphere of fear? Crises. And so there's all the different thoughts in the Bible and in real life of when there's a crisis, people panic and will trade their freedom for security. And what's God's response? Well, it's in times of crisis you turn to Christ. And fear not. Over and over in the Bible, fear not. Don't be motivated by fear. We're going to see God's response to what's going on in the world today. Exciting messages, the faith-filled messages, and I look forward to seeing you. God bless.